about whenever an incident is added or edited. So for our level 3, because they have a different form, they're allowed to select all of the possible values in the drop-down fields. So for example, on the starting status field, they can pick level 3 ITS. Part of this form control, it allows us to make the most efficient use of our process. In other words, we don't have to force every incident through the same starting point. We don't have to say everything has to start at ESG. So for example, if a level 3 user here is creating the incident, then we know that they're already level 3, and they can just send it straight over to the IT group to be worked on for development. So we try to make our process as efficient as possible and get it to the right people as quickly as possible for resolution. We also have custom forms for editing. So we have custom forms when an incident is being created, but then once you edit an incident, we have even more fields that show up. And we also use the custom forms when we're editing to also control some values. For example, the status field. That's the most important field because that's actually controlling how the incident is routing through the workflow process. So we do control the values that are selectable in the status. Okay. All right. Another way we control our whole incident process is through the use of custom fields. We have 121 custom fields, and we have a lot of them. And many of them are used because we do our service level agreement management, and we calculate aging in many different buckets. We calculate the overall age of an incident. We calculate how long it's been at ESG. We calculate how long it was at level 2. We even have a metric that calculates how long when it comes into ESG before somebody in ESG touches that incident by either changing the status or, well, actually changing anything about the incident. So lots of custom fields. There's lots of options if you have your custom fields as far as the type of field they can be, like integer, date, time, floating. They can have calculated fields. This is just an example here, this little screenshot of what a calculated field can look like. You can have complex formulas if you need to. That's just an example. Additionally, use of normal fields, you can set up dependencies between two fields, and we do that. I know it's a little hard to see. For example, we have a dependent field of subcategory that is dependent on the category field. And this is what it looks like in configuration, where I have category finance. And then over here, I select all the possible subcategory values that are allowed to be shown. And what that looks like, oh, I guess, I'm sorry, I thought I had a picture of that. Okay. Then we have configuration. And this is where it gets more into the process configuration of how to control the actual flow of the incident. So what we do is we use the workflow process to determine that based on when an incident is created, anytime the status is changed, we have the workflow engine determine who specifically the incident should be assigned to, and then we immediately notify them by email that an incident has been assigned to them. And what this lets us do is, upon creation of an incident, immediately the system determines who the correct true users are that need to be working this incident right then, and it emails them. And what that does is that we don't just create an incident and it goes into a queue, and then at some later point someone comes and reviews that queue and says, oh, this is supposed to go to these 2 people to work. We want the system to determine that so that it minimizes the time, the delay before someone actually works on this incident. Okay? And how do we do this? Well, this is through the configuration that Sky was kind of talking about. So this is an example of our process workflow. And the way that the workflow works is basically using the status field, as I mentioned. So each one of these lines represents what happens when a particular status is selected. Okay, so let me go to the next slide and describe this start point just a little bit. So in the example that I kind of showed you where we were creating an incident, we were starting the incident at level 3 ESG. So the workflow engine sees that we have the starting status of level 3 ESG, and it knows it has to come into this activity here. And this activity here is called level 3 ESG, which also represents the status. Then what the system does is it assigns that incident or the task for that incident to a specific set of users based on a role. And the role is identified in your workflow definition. And in this case, it's this role called 3 ESG master role. Okay? So then when we go over to the role configuration, what we do is we set up criteria for this role. We have multiple criteria, but in this case we have criteria that says, for example, if category is equal to finance and subcategory is equal to general ledger, then pick these two names down here and assign the incident or the task to these two people. It's pretty straightforward. Then, as I mentioned, we want to generate an email to the users telling them that the incident has been assigned to them. So Kovair has this is a very strong feature I find is the policy feature. And when you build a policy, you define the event that is going to trigger the policy. And in this case, it's because the incident was just added. There's all kinds of events that can trigger a policy, or they can be scheduled to run. Then you say, well, okay, once an incident's added, what do I want to do? So we want to notify. We want to send an email to somebody and tell them something. Okay? Well, who do we want to notify? So then we say, okay, well, we want to notify the people that are in the assigned to field. Okay, well, what do we want to tell them? So then we tell the system to use this mail template called incident assigned to you. And here is what the email template looks like. And I wanted to put a picture in here so that you can see over here on the right, I know it's kind of small, that basically any field, including your custom fields, are available to insert into your email, the body of your email template that you're going to send to well, whoever you're going to send it to. They're also HTML formatted so you can use underlining, bold and things like that, or different colored fonts. So it's very nice because when we send an email from Kovair, we want the most information available to the person to make it as relevant as possible. Okay? Another control we put into place is the use of electronic signature fields. So we do a lot of incidents related to SAP security, people needing access to SAP. So the security requests, they just use their own form also because it's only fields that they need to see in Kovair. And since they do so many of them, they don't want to see all the other fields that they're not interested in. But a key control for security requests are that we need proof that someone in ESG has reviewed these, because these are definitely auditable, because access to systems, of course, is very sensitive. So the way the electronic signature feature works is that each user has their own, it's like a password, but it's an electronic signature. So it's actually a different password that when it's entered into this field with a comment and they save it, the history of them adding that comment is saved with the incident, and it is basically proof that that person really did sign this field. And you can do this multiple times. You can have multiple history showing on an electronic signature field, but it's very, very useful, especially for audit, audit kind of things. Validation policies. We take advantage of making sure certain conditions are met before we save an incident. For example, if someone changes the status to a suspended status, we want to force them to enter a suspend reason and suspend comment. So if you're going to suspend an incident, we want to know why. The system will just pop up a message saying, no, you've got to enter a suspend